Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Unleash Her. Hey, I'm Roberta, in case you don't know me, and I am your host for today. And I'm so excited to introduce you to a friend of mine, Miss Crystal Rieck. Hi, Crystal.
Hey Roberta, how are you? Hi everybody listening.
Hi, I'm so good. Thank you so much for coming on today. We were having a great conversation right before we hit the record button. So we're like, all right, let's hit record. Let's go.
That's right.
Gosh,
People want to hear this.
I know the inside
Yeah.
story. Let's that's what we're gonna do. But why don't you go ahead and just tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, awesome. So, yeah, my name's Crystal Rieck, and I'm a business mentor and certified high performance coach. And I help ambitious women stop settling for less and build the dream life and dream business that they really deserve to have. But just like a few short years ago, my life looked very different. So I spent the first part of my life doing everything I was supposed to do. So you go to school and you get a good job and you get married and you buy a house and you have kids and like you hustle like crazy until retirement, right? And so I was an accountant by trade and a CFO and director, and I held all these corporate titles. But and from the outside looking in, I people would think that I had it all. So everyone's always looking to have it all, right? And
Mhm.
on the inside, I felt incredibly trapped in my life. And honestly, I wanted to escape it. I remember hearing this story on the radio, and there was this woman who left her family and she just started a new life. And I remember thinking, one, I'm not quite sure how you can leave your kids, but also I fully understood why she did it. And I was feeling at the time, I don't know if anyone else can resonate with that at all, but I was feeling fully burnt out. I had I had suffered from depression in the past, and I could feel that coming on again, even though I had done a lot of things in between to change it. And so that fear of it coming back on is kind of what led me to make a real big change in my life. And so that's kind of what led me to what I do now and how I help people. And it also led me to see that I was chasing someone else's version of success,
Mhm.
right? We we are brought up to look at the world and then we just follow this path, and whether that's through your parents or whatever, and we just don't question it until we feel trapped or we feel sad or we're angry or we're in these situations. And so before we before you hit record, we were talking about
Mhm.
kind of mentorship and coaching. And so it was in that moment that that's when I hired my first coach. And first coach, I've had quite a few since then. And um, what what they helped me see in that time was that I had these blind spots. So even though it looked like I had it all together, I had these blind spots. And if you think when you're driving along in the car, you look in your mirrors and you're looking to change lanes, and if you don't turn your head and look, you're not going to see what's there. Maybe you have a passenger beside you and they're going to, see that. Well, that's that coach for me. And so I she helped me get out of that dark spot that I was in, and really that took me to see what I wanted for my life and really step into the woman that I wanted to be, that future self. And I know we had an experience, Roberta, when you and I met about visioning your future self and stepping into her. And, we've been doing that since we since we met, I feel like,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a road for me, and I just love what I do now, being out of that kind of corporate world, and I still like to be busy, and I still like to do great work. But I love to help people too.
Wow. I
Yeah.
love that. Was there like one moment, or was it just, or did you just wake up one day and you're like, no, oh, wait, hold on. Rock bottom moment, or just a
Rock bottom. Yeah, like so I even at that time I had built myself a business. Like I had my own business. But really I had just built myself a job because it was an accounting business that I was still trading time for money. And so if I wanted to make more money, I had to work more hours. So I was working like 60 hours a week probably, and like to make more money, and I was sitting in this dark basement. And I could just feel the depression coming back on. And when that happened before, I was working for an accounting firm, and I was working probably like 80 hours a week. And I had a 2 to 3 year old, he was 2 to 3 years old, and I would hardly see him. And so I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to go back there. So that was kind of the it was fear of going back to that dark place, because um at that point I didn't think I had the confidence to get out of it. I'm looking back now and I could say you're pretty resilient. You've been through some stuff, girl. Like you can get through it. But in that moment, I was like, if I have to do this again, I don't know that I'm going to make it to the other side of it. So that's when I knew I had to do something.
did you have a good support system behind you?
Yeah. Yes, I would say I have an amazing husband, but I was masking everything.
Mm,
I had it all.
yeah.
What could be wrong with you? You have a house, you have cars, like your kids look like they're thriving, like everything looked great. How could I say that I hate this life that I built and I want to escape from it? I built it. I built it. It was my business. I I built it. Like there was a lot of shame and guilt that I felt.
Yeah.
So I just didn't talk about it. Did I have support? Yes, I had some, but I didn't talk about it because I felt probably shameful.
Yeah. When you had that first mentor, were you looking for a mentor? Were you looking for someone? Did they come to you? Did they just appear?
They, I realized that I needed to be around other people. I saw this post about this lonely laptopper meetup, and I was like, in like locally, and I was like, I don't need to go. I'm not lonely. I have all this going on. I have all these clients. I have all these like I'm just like I don't need to go. And then the girl that was hosting it that weekend before, two different people said, "Have you met her?" And I was like, "Okay, signs. I hear you." And so I went, and like it was literally like at a coffee shop. Her family was there. I feel like I was part of the family and a couple other entrepreneurs. And I realized in that moment that although I had support around me, I didn't have people that got it. Like I
Mm.
didn't have people that got what I was going through, and they did, and they helped like nudge me forward. They also challenged me to do things, and like after that night, like I did my first Facebook Live, and I hired an employee because I had so much work, because I knew I wanted to expand, but I didn't know how. I put out like a job posting, and then that's when I also sought out a coach because I was like, oh, I see, I need people. I need more people. Yeah.
Mm,
And my first coach was technically a business coach. Like I hired her for a business coach. But she was so great. And a lot of business coaches are like this, that they have also done their own personal work and personal development work and self work, that they can see it right away that you hired me to help you with your business, but we got to work on this little messy spot over here first. Yeah.
yeah. Was that the subconscious programming, or was that just um not knowing your authentic self?
I think it was a combination of all of that. I definitely would say now, looking back, that I had no idea who I was. I realized that I would often like be like a chameleon. Like you go in a room and you can be who you need to be depending on the vibe of the room or the people in it. Yeah, yeah, you're with me?
Totally. That was completely me.
Right. And so then after I realized that, I was like, well, who the am I? Like I don't know who I am.
Yeah.
Right. So yes, a lot of programming to unravel, but also trying to figure out who I was.
Yeah.
And like this happened after the age of 40 for me.
After 50 for me. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, like it was like I turned 40, and then there was a couple years of like kind of like you start to care about crap less, like things that used to bother you and whatever. You're like, I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
And then yeah, then it was just this like, is this all there is? Like, is this my life?
Mhm.
And you just also had this feeling that you're meant for something different. And I couldn't see what that was in that moment. I couldn't like I didn't have enough capacity to see the vision, but I just knew in my soul I was meant for more.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
what was your, like, what did you do to kind of work through that? I mean, I know this was a process, and or how did you get to where you're at today?
Yeah, that's a that's a great question. Um, uh, Also, the work never stops. Like I'll just say
Yeah.
that.
Right.
We said that
Right.
just before you hit record.
Yeah.
Like, oh, these things still creep up.
Yeah.
But yeah. So when I was sitting in my basement and I was like, okay, like I worked with a coach and now I could at least see a vision. Now it's like, okay, how do I get from sitting here to there? And so one of my superpowers in business is being able to, look at a problem and kind of reverse engineer a solution. So I was like, well, why can't I just reverse engineer? Like that's who you want to be. Who do you need? Who is she? Who do you need to show up as today? And so I started this process of becoming my future self. And I identified, how does she think? How does she act? What is she like? What does she wear? Like I went into real detail of like how does she sit and
Mhm.
how does she walk and like what is like how does she show up in a meeting and how does she show up here? And I went into real detail. And I remember like, okay, well, how do I go do all that? Like, I'm not going out to buy a whole new wardrobe and I'm not whatever. But I remember the very first thing that when I identified her and the difference between where I was and there was part of that process is like, what do you never want to do again? And I remember just thinking, like, I don't want to yell at my kids anymore. I was just this person who, especially like at 4 or 5 o'clock when things got hairy and like work was a long day, I would yell at my kids and, do this and do that. And like, it's crazy. And I didn't want to be that mom anymore. And so I kind of reverse engineered that and went, like, what is causing me to do that? And so I was like, well, if my future self didn't want to do that, she probably didn't go all day without eating.
Mm.
Like that's how I connected the two at the time.
Yeah.
I was going all day without eating. And then I was just eating all of it at night. And I was like, well, she'd probably take a lunch. That's what my future self would do. She would take a lunch. And I booked in the lunch hour every day on my calendar because I hated my calendar. That's one thing that I definitely never wanted to do is have that book of calendar again. But I stuck it in there from 12 to 1 every day. And yeah, like doing that, eventually that habit and choosing, like making the decision that I didn't want to yell at my kids, and that's not how future me would show up, led me to not yelling at my kids anymore and learning to feel my body better. And like it just snowballed into these things by putting that one habit in place.
By just adding some self-care and self-love.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
because you
eat.
you were just
Your
yeah.
future, you would eat.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I'm like, "Oh, you don't want me get me hangry. Watch out." You know?
Right.
No. No, no,
Yeah.
no, no.
Right.
Yeah, and myself working in a hair salon, when it was busy, when the clients are there, you wanna take them. But I found there were certain days that I was just overbooking, and I'd hurt for 2 days. I needed 2 days off, just to recover. So, it was like, "Okay, know your limit, and we're not gonna do this anymore."
Yeah. Yeah. Know your limit. That is so true because I think sometimes we push and we push and we're probably people who don't at least at that time wouldn't say no to people if they needed things from you. So you're always giving of yourself to anybody, but you had nothing left for yourself.
The Giving Tree.
Yeah.
That book. It always reminds
Right.
me of that, and that's what I felt like because we do as parents, as moms, at least I did, you did.
Mm-hmm.
But then once you started taking better care of yourself and everybody was happier.
Yeah. Like honestly, yeah, and it's so crazy now because I think we're like told that like all the way along, like, put your oxygen mask on first. Like you got to take care of yourself. But when you're in the throes of like toddlerhood and like kids, like, making dinners and like going to their things and, going to their sports and whatever, like, you're not in that headspace to think that you can even do that because you're like, what's left in the day?
Yeah.
But when you then decide, okay, I'm going to try it and see if it helps or makes it better, and you start, eating lunch or, taking a walk or like really, they may seem hard at first, but when you look back, those are pretty simple things. Like eating lunch, if it was leftovers from the night before, took me 10 or 15 minutes. Like it didn't take this huge length of time or space out of my day. So when you start like doing things for yourself, you start to feel better and you start to have more energy and you start to love yourself. Like I think through this process of healing and working on myself, I learned to love myself for the first time in my entire life. And I was probably 45 years old when I
Mhm.
was first like, didn't hate looking in the mirror.
Yeah. Yeah, same here. And you really didn't probably we didn't realize that it was that bad or that we really didn't love ourselves until we took some time
Mm-hmm.
and was like, "Whoa." Would you
Yeah.
treat yourself like would you treat someone else the way that you're treating you?
Right.
No.
Right. And I think that I didn't even have the awareness that I was saying those things to myself. Like you have this voice in your head that is just constantly narrating your day and things going on, and you don't I didn't know that I could change it. I just thought that that was me and that was my voice, but that comes from conditioning, and you take on other people's voices and things like that. Like if you're not talking nice to yourself, that's not your true self talking to you.
Yeah.
That's someone else's voice that you've taken on as your own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because go back, well, I don't remember too much when I was 5, but when we're 5, we're not looking at ourselves and saying bad things. We're like, "Oh, we're awesome."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I don't know if you went through this, but did you do some mirror work on your,
Yeah.
yeah. And so I remember, because we were in a same similar coaching program,
Uh-huh. Yes.
and I remember that's when, I was introduced to this mirror work. And so I remember like looking in the mirror, and I couldn't see one night, like nothing was positive to me. But I
Yeah.
told myself, like, you're gonna say positive things to yourself. And so I picked my toes.
I love it.
Because I'm a pedicure girl, and I'm always have a color on, so like I was okay with my toes. Like I was like, your toes are cute. So
I
that's where
love
I
that.
started. That's where I started.
I
And
started, yes, that's me. I'm
where
like,
did you
"Well,"
start?
I go I was like, well, I love my smile. I've always loved, my smile. Oh, you have a good smile. Okay, smile more, like just you have to find something.
You have to find something, and then you slowly start to find other things. And like
Yeah.
honestly, now like I was curling my hair for this like call with you, and I was
Mhm.
just like, gosh, I look at my, because I was thinking back, right? Like, because we're going to talk about this. And I was just like, I love the person in the mirror. And like, I'm a girl who's been on like a weight loss journey, like her whole life. And there's ups and downs. And like, I love myself for who I am
Mhm.
first. And I can look in the mirror any size now and be like, like I still love you. I still love you. Like
Mhm.
that that is just this body that you are here
Yeah.
in this world. It's not your soul.
Right.
And so yeah, and
Yeah.
you start to have this awareness, and you start hearing these voices, and then as soon as you do have the awareness, you can flip it,
Yeah.
right? So
Amazing.
when you start saying negative things to yourself, you can choose a new thought,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
So true. Yeah, I was the same in everything, and I have battled with my weight. And so I would also notice the last few years, like there would be times that I was noticing, why am I eating right now? I'm not hungry and I'm just snacking or this or that, or not that that's the end of the world. I'm not saying, but there were times that I was going maybe even into my room or a place, and it was like, I'm hiding. I'm filling something up right now
Hmm.
because there's some emptiness. So that was the awareness, and that's what we do.
Yeah. And so then if we never really truly work through those emotions that are coming up, they're just always going to come up. And you can get in control maybe of the eating for a while, if that's your vice.
Mhm.
But if you don't deal with those emotions, it's going to come back, and it's always going to come back in some shape or form, whether it's eating, or some people it's alcohol or
Mhm.
gambling, or like just negative self-talk
Mhm.
consistently. It's going to come back. And so you have to start recognizing when you're doing it to shift and start telling yourself, hey, that's not who I am now. That's that old version of me who I love and appreciate and who got me here, because
Mhm.
I'm not going to make her feel bad or feel shame about it. But that's the old version of me. This version of me makes these choices and these decisions. And like we said, it's a work in progress. We're not perfect at it,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
We have all
That-
these areas of our life that we have to work at. Business and motherhood and our relationships and health, and like, you it's hard to prioritize something in every space all the time.
Yeah. And did you think too, like at first oh, I was like overwhelmed. I'm like, whoa, hold on. I don't even know where to go. I don't know where to start. Even with whatever it is, but it's one step at a time, and I think people get overwhelmed and they say forget it, I just can't do that. And we are here, we're examples for others to see, that you can do this and it's never too late.
Yeah, and it really, it's definitely never too late. And it starts with little things that compound, right? Like,
Uh-huh.
you have to realize that, like, it isn't like, 30 days and a quick fix. We
Yeah.
are years into this journey, you and I.
Yes. Yeah.
And you'll still catch yourself. You'll still
Yeah.
catch thoughts that come up that you don't want to own anymore. You'll still, things will come out of your mouth that you're like, whoa. Like, maybe you get caught gossiping somewhere. Like,
Mhm.
no,
Yeah.
that's not who I want to be anymore. And it's just, making different choices and, you know,
And
deciding who you want to be. Because if you don't decide who you want to be, then you're just going to continue to make all the choices you were making.
yeah. And what's that process look like for, I know, who the person that you want to be?
Yeah.
Well,
So, yeah, well, you look at that vision or that life that you want to have and you say, okay, how do I show up as her? Like, what does she, how does she move about her day and how does she think? And like, typically she's successful and she's confident and she's strong and she's healthy and, right, like, those are the things that we want for our life. And so how do you get there from here? And one, you have to realize that it's a journey,
mhm,
right? And it's the actions and the inspired actions that you take. But two, like, we talked about confidence a little,
yeah.
and I think most women want to feel more confident. And sometimes we look at other people and we're like, oh, they're so confident, they're so successful. Like, look at them on this podcast. Like, look at, like, right, like, or on your social media if you're scrolling and, like, oh, she looks so comfortable in that outfit. Like, we want someone else's confidence.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I think we sit around and wait for it, but it's not something that just comes. It's like a muscle that you have to strengthen,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So if you want to have more confidence, you have to do things that will, when you do them, you'll feel confident that you did them.
And I have an example for you there because
Yeah.
the first I had this keynote speaking event that I did that was like, when was that? Last year? Early last year. Anyway, um when I was finished with it, I was like, "Oh my gosh." Like, whew. thank God it's over. I mean, my mouth dried up and I could look at that. Now, here's where we say like perception, the way that we look at this, okay? I was like, oh, it was I almost want to say it was awful, blah blah blah, but I don't even remember the end of it. you know.
You just kind of black out when you're on
Yeah,
stage, right? Like, and you
okay.
just like
I
say
was
what comes to you, and you're like, well, I hope it was good.
it drained me completely. But I woke up the next morning and I go, I am so proud of myself. I freaking
Yeah,
killed it. I made it through that. So I
right.
changed it.
Exactly. And so, but before you went on stage, were you feeling super confident about it?
I was trying to
You were trying.
convince I was trying to convince myself, but the
Totally.
day
And that's part of it.
considering it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there
Yeah.
is a piece of like putting on that, kind of fake it till you make it like space, right? Because man, even Beyonce
Yeah.
gave herself a persona because she was so scared to go on stage. So she gave herself a persona of
Yeah.
Sasha Fierce before she went
Right.
on stage. So, but
Mm.
it was until she continued to go on stage as Sasha Fierce and got confident with that that she was able to stand there as Beyonce.
Yeah.
So it's a muscle. It's
I,
like riding a bike. It's like, you're not confident that you're not going to fall when you first get on a bike.
yeah.
You may not care as much when you're, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, whenever you learn to ride a bike.
I have to
But
say, Crystal,
yeah.
I'm sorry you reminded me though. I have to tell you because so the day before we had like our rehearsal. Oh, it was bad. Oh, it was so bad, but some things were happening at that time. There was a little contrast. I didn't even know if my kids were going to be able to make it. Like it was crazy. Okay. And then I had this, I didn't feel the confidence even in how I was dressed.
Mm.
So when I went for the day of the event, I put on this dress that I had bought and it's actually called the Jackie O dress.
I like it.
Right? And I
Some
put on that
confidence
dress,
there.
right? I put on that dress and those heels, and I was like, I stepped in to that person. You
Yeah.
can do that.
Yes. And that's part of it.
Yes.
I was coaching someone on a call once, and they were going to this event, and they were like, da da da, and I was like, okay, well, how would future you dress if they were at this event now and they were speaking and whatever? And literally before she went to the event, she sent me a selfie, and she put on the exact thing that she told me on our call, and she like went and rocked the event. And so it's those things that like help you build your confidence,
I know.
right? Yeah. And we
It's
just
just,
don't, yeah, I know. It
yeah,
can be so simple.
it can.
It, right? But it comes through having conversations like this, because when we're stuck in our basement working, trying to do this thing all alone, like we're not having these kinds of conversations for someone to say, yeah, no, just like put on the Jackie O dress and strut around. Like you wouldn't think of that naturally. You might, maybe it'll come to you, but the more you start having conversations with people and surrounding yourself with support and community, and
Yeah.
you're going to get more of that.
Yeah. Well, like you were talking about superpowers, it reminds me, it's like just putting on that cape, putting on your superpower, remembering who you are, because we
Yeah.
forget.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh gosh, some of my mirror work, like I did the superwoman pose like so many freaking times,
Yeah.
right? Or like when you're going on stage, or like you're gonna come on and do something like this, like you stand there, like you can't help but feel more confident. You just, it just happens.
Yeah.
It's like you're, I don't know, maybe your body knows that you're going into some like great battle, that you're just like, okay, we got this. We got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
like there's a piece of having the courage, to do these uncomfortable things, right? You having the courage to say, like, I want to speak on stage, and then you get an opportunity to speak on stage and you do it. There was some courage that it took to sit in the discomfort of the things like that it takes, like to go on stage. Like it's not just like, oh, I'm going to speak and then I'm going to speak on stage. Like you have to write the things, you have to tell your story, you have to go through the thoughts of telling your story and what do these people think. Like there's so much courage in that journey, and we have to kind of dig deep and find that.
Yeah. But it's
Yeah.
we all have it inside of us. We all have it.
Oh my gosh, we do. And you know, for me, and maybe this will work for some women listening, for me, I look at the things I've been through, um,
Mm.
and it gives me strength
Mhm.
because I think to myself, um, well,
Oh,
I think to myself, if I can get through that,
yeah.
that very dark, sad time in my life,
Mhm.
um, and I've been through a lot, but the one was when I lost a baby, and if I can get through that, like it's it's weird that I sometimes think it's weird that I correlate this, but I'm like, man, if you're still here and you got through that dark time, you can do anything.
Yeah.
And so it's like I look at the things that I've been through in my life and I can kind of like flex that resilience muscle and be like, you were resilient once, you can do this again,
Mhm.
you know, um and that also helps when you're faced with a lot of things going on in your life. Like you mentioned a lot of contrast before you stepped on stage.
Yeah.
You know, all of that, you know, with what you've been through, and you've been through a lot too.
Yeah.
And the people listening know a lot of your story. Like it, you have a resilience in you that will get you through anything. It's like a superpower.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you were talking about depression earlier, because
Hmm.
I said, oh my gosh, I suffered from depression and anxiety. And I'm going to tell you, I didn't really think about this until somebody explained it the other day in a way that I'd never really comprehended. And they're like, well, depression is living in the past and anxiety is living in the future. And I'm like, oh,
Yep.
like, wait a minute. I mean, I know that, but I
Yeah.
didn't know it. Like,
You didn't know it,
hear it.
right? Like, that's right. And so that becomes a real shift in perspective.
Yes.
And so if you can see that you're feeling a certain way, and I think depression and anxiety a lot of times go hand in hand,
Mhm.
but you can look at your thoughts and you can kind of pull them apart and say, okay, that's me thinking from the past, like feeling bad or shame or whatever about what I did.
Yeah.
Or anxiety is like you're worrying about what's going to happen. And if you can pull those apart, you can start to figure out, okay, how do I deal with each one? Yeah, I love that you shared that.
Yeah.
It's a
And that's
great shift in perspective.
right. And once you have the guidance, because it took me working with mentors also to help me work through these things of letting things go, you don't realize, oh, my depression was me holding on to things. And so once I learned how to let those go and letting go and forgiving yourself,
Mm,
forgiveness, letting go, all of that. Whoa.
yeah.
We are, yeah.
Yeah, we carry a lot of stuff, and a lot of it you don't even know that you carry,
And you
right?
don't and you don't realize what it's doing to your body too. I
Mm-hmm.
heard someone we were talking the other day again about IBS, and I also had IBS. And I mean, I went to the emergency room. I'm like, something is wrong with my stomach. Like, I can't even eat. Something's
Yeah.
wrong. It hurts so bad. And oh gosh, they did CT scans and everything. And they're like, honey, there's nothing there. And I'm like, "Ah." So it didn't hit me until later. I was letting the fear get to me and it affected my body physically. And I think people don't understand that that can actually happen and does happen.
Yeah, Ken, I actually have an entire book. It's like probably this thick. And it's like whatever ailment you have, I can like look it up and see where in the body and like what's going on.
Mhm.
Because it manifests itself in your body. And Western medicine can't like there's no scan that's going to tell you that you're holding on to fear in your core and that's why that's going on in your guts.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I pull out a book too. I have that too. I don't know if we have the same book, but I'll look it up just to be curious. And I'm like,
Right.
that's just another coincidence.
I know. You look it up and or like a friend of mine, they'll be like, oh, I got so and so, like, oh, what does it mean for lower back pain? And you'll look it up and they'll be like, oh, shoot. Like, it's just like almost always right, or like you
No,
could resonate
it
with it in
is.
some way. Yeah. And you're just
Yeah.
like, well, I don't know. But
Oh, lower back pain is like feeling like you have the world, you know, on your back. And I'm like, oh, carrying the world.
that's right.
So many
Yeah.
things you're carrying. You feel like you have this load. Oh, that was me. Oh, my lower back's so much better now. It's so good.
Right.
I haven't done anything
Yeah.
else different.
No, you just let go of some stuff that you were holding on to.
Yeah.
And like that is weight. Like you think like your lower back is sore because you've been lifting something or you moved weird or whatever. Like when you're in your 40s and 50s, like that's what you think. But like
Yeah.
no, it's like mental weight. Like the mental load. Oh, we could do a whole nother episode on
Right.
carrying the mental load, but it is something that we have to work through as people, but like I think more so as moms of the mental load that we carry and all the things that we're thinking about all the time and making sure we're managing in our heads.
Yeah. No offense, guys, but I want to tell you something. No, just sorry or whatever. Okay. Why? I shouldn't say this, but why do they seem like they can fall asleep like that?
Yeah, what the heck? What the heck?
Can somebody fill me in on something I don't know? Because
What are they doing? I purposely go to bed earlier so that I can be asleep because
I
otherwise I will just be annoyed that they fell asleep so fast.
know. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't
Maybe
know.
it's
Maybe,
not
maybe
all.
someone
I'm
will
not
tell
saying
us.
it's all.
Like, no. But like, if you do resonate with that and you know why they fall asleep so easily, if you just let us know so we can fix that.
Yes. If you can fill me in on something, I would love it.
Share with us.
I know. I know. Yeah, I'm not picking on anyone. Okay. I'm just saying
No,
this is my
no,
experience.
that's
So,
right. We're just speaking from our experience here.
right. But it does. It takes me a while to fall asleep, and that's why I say that. So I usually get a book out and I usually can't make it through a page then
Yeah,
trying to
books do
read.
that for me too.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
oh, this has been so much fun, Crystal. Oh my God.
It
Yeah, we
has. I love
definitely
talking to you.
you too. Oh, you're so amazing. And, thank you so much for sharing everything. Is there anything else that you would like to share with everyone?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I would share is to find your vision, find what you want, and look at it now from a different lens. You've listened to this podcast all the way through.
Mhm.
Look at it through a different lens. Like, who do you want to be? Who do you desire to be? Let all the society, the constraints, financial constraints, let everything go and really look at the life you want to live and redefine that now based on who you are today. Because you might have done a vision board at the beginning of the year and you, right? But like, we're all different, right? So I would challenge everybody to look at who they want to be today and then start looking at how does she think and how does she act and how does she move and start putting on that Jackie O dress and strut around the house now.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Like
And
you are her. Like I think that that's really the message is that you are your future self. You think
yeah,
that there's this gap,
yeah,
but you are her. So as soon as you start acting like her and thinking like
yeah,
her, you are her.
yeah. Oh, that's so perfect. That's so true. I mean, look at us. We are examples of what you can go through at a later time in life or mid time in life, whatever you want to call it. Um, it's never too late. So find some help,
Yeah.
find a mentor, find a coach, find someone to guide you and live your freaking best life.
Best freaking life ever. Yeah,
Yes.
and like
Ah,
start now. Like
I
I was
know.
never in this space. Like I didn't start till I was well in my 40s. So like and, you know, you're in your 50s. So and we're
Yeah.
looking pretty darn good. So
I know. We
I don't
look
know.
amazing.
There's a lot of years left. So do it.
Yes.
Don't hold
Yeah.
yourself back.
Yeah. Ah, thank you so much, Crystal. And thank you everyone for coming and joining us today. I'm going to have all of the information for Crystal here so you can reach out to her and reach out to me if I can help you in any way too. And thank you for joining. And, like my grandma used to say, see you later.